So here we are today at another You Are That Which You Seek meditation. The purpose of these meditations are always to bring us to that most core part of ourself. Sometimes you could call it awareness. Sometimes you could call it everything, nothing. I think today it'll be very much themed around love. Love as being that core part of ourself. Because honestly, I think if we can recognize that, then that's the answer to most of our problems. So, with that being said, we might also explore a couple things that might help break down the barriers to recognizing ourself as love, and that being the primary thing. So, with that being said, if you guys are ready, we'll go ahead and get into it. So let's mute our phones so we're not disturbed during this. And of course, everyone, keep your microphones muted. I think everyone's muted. Cool. All right. So let's get comfortable. And if you like, close your eyes with me. Prior to having the knowledge that we have today of the earth revolving around the sun rather than the sun revolving around the earth, it very much seemed like the sun revolved around the earth. As the sun would rise each morning and seemed to be that which moved throughout the landscape. It's very easy to conclude that the sun revolves around the earth. And perhaps so is true for our thoughts. As our thoughts rise, it's very easy to conclude that what those thoughts say about ourselves or the world is really out there in the world. And it takes some knowledge to begin to change our understanding of what at first glance may seem so obvious. Just as it took some knowledge to change our understanding of what at first glance seems like the sun revolving around the earth. And so is true with the idea of who we are. At first glance, it seems so obvious. We are this body, this human. And it really does take some knowledge to create a new understanding of ourself as something deeper. Ourself as love. have to temporarily, at least, not refer to those thoughts that say, or limit who you are as being just a body, just a human. And rather ask ourselves, what is it that is aware that there is a body here? What is this framework of thinking that describes to us that we are limited to this body? This framework sees in terms of cause and effect, in terms of beginning and end, in terms of time. And it's true. Through that framework of interpreting, there is a reality in which this body is limited. There is a reality in which there is a beginning and an end. There is a reality in which there is a cause and an effect for this body. And that reality is the very reality that the framework of thinking provides. That very reality, to say that differently, only exists through that thinking framework. What is the basic framework of thinking? What does it operate on? And when we start to notice that, then we might start to wonder, well, is there something that exists outside of that framework, outside of what thinking is limited to? So again, what is the framework by which thinking understands? Cause and effect, as we said already, beginning and end. and time. So yes, to understand ourselves through the mechanism of thought, it will paint a reality that is limited to that very framework that is the foundation in which thought can operate. But what if there's a way to know ourselves without utilizing this framework of thinking? Not that there's anything wrong with it, but of course we're only going to get answers in relation to its very framework. We're not going to get answers outside of the framework in which it operates. So again, if the framework of thinking is cause and effect, is beginning and end, is time, all of these are related to time, then that's exactly how we're going to know who we are. We will know ourselves as limited. We'll know ourselves as having a beginning and an end. We'll know ourselves as existing or not existing, birthing or dying. We'll know ourselves as finite. Being made up of or having specific objective qualities in which are definable through the framework in which thought operates. Of course, if we were to refer to thinking, we would know ourselves in that way, limited, having a beginning and an end. Being subject to gain or loss. And as true as this reality is, from that level, there might also be another way that we can know ourselves. The easiest way to say that might be without referring to thinking itself. Just like upon first glance, it really appears as though the sun revolves around the earth. Maybe also true for our lives, as on first glance, it really appears as though thought is what we need to understand everything about ourselves and our life through. Maybe there's another language other than thought. And maybe that language begins right when thought ends. And maybe that language is love. Maybe that language is the language of eternity. Maybe that language is the language of infinity. Many of our problems in our lives are what you could call, maybe we could go as far as to say, self-created. And of course, it depends on how you define the word problems. But perhaps you can define that for yourself. The point is, from this perspective, you might see the problems in your life in a little bit of a different way. if you do choose to use the energy of this space to examine what you could call a problem from this perspective, from this energy, then you might watch. The primary aspects of what is seen. There might be the aspect of an image. There might be the aspect of the interpretation, which of course is seen through the foundation of thought. The way that thought interprets the image that's seen. And then you might also notice the primary element in this equation, which is you. Not the you that is interpreted through the limitations of thinking. Not the conceptual you, with preferences and boundaries and motivations and agendas, but more so this eternal, infinite, deeply rooted love. That really starts to make itself known the moment we not so much push away, but simply not refer to a thought, not refer to the limits inherent in thinking. Again, there's nothing wrong with thinking, but we're always going to know reality based on the limitations inherent in thinking, which again is fine, but just might not be all of it. Just might not be the whole picture. Who are you really? And what's most important to you? You know what's most important to your human, which is known through the limitations inherent in thought. But what could you say is most important to you? The you that can't be defined through the limitations of thought. The you that can only be known experientially. The you that is eternal, infinite love. What does this self really want? Maybe it doesn't have any wants. Maybe it just is. And that is everything. Careful not to confuse this self for aspects of the conceptual self that is rooted in scarcity. The conceptual self that is rooted in gain-loss. The conceptual self that's rooted not enough. The possibility of not enough. Know the difference between these two selves. Now, as we like to do, go ahead and ask your heart. Ask yourself, what is it that at this point I most need to know moving forward? What would be most helpful for me moving forward? Take a moment to see what that is. When you feel like you've sufficiently concluded what you need from this week's meditation, begin to slowly bring this love that you are back to your breath in this body, in this moment, and each other, and our conversation. And when you're ready to do this, and only when you're ready to do this, feel free to take in a deep breath and open your eyes.